dear. Thank you. I shall not go far.
Good morning, Emma. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Knightley.
Now, perhaps you can tell me what the weather is like, Mr. Knightley. Should I be unwise to venture to the end of the drive, do you think?
It's confoundedly mild for the time of year, in my opinion. One can hardly believe that we shall soon have Christmas upon us.
Ah, but there's time enough for a change, I'm afraid. We could have snow yet.
Snow? Oh, Papa.
You mark my word, my dear, it's a treacherous season. Oh, well, if the roads are too bad, let us hope that Isabella will have the wisdom not to attempt to drive from London.
But, Papa, it is only 16 miles.
It seems that everybody will have visitors this Christmas. You will have my brother and Isabella, and Miss Bates will have her niece, and Mr. Weston will have his son Frank, if he condescends to come. Whereas I shall have nobody.
Well, never mind, Mr. Knightley. You will always be welcome here, as you know.
Thank you, Emma.
Perhaps if you are not already too fatigued by your walk, Mr. Knightley, you would care to accompany as far as the shrubbery and back.
Well, nothing would give me greater pleasure, sir, but as it happens, if you'll excuse me, I have something of particular interest I wish to tell Emma.
Oh, very well. Well, in that case, I had better take my 3 turns upon the terrace by myself. Forgive my rudeness in leaving you. We invalids like to think ourselves privileged people, you know.
Well, Emma.
Well, Mr. Knightley, and what is your news?
I have good reason to believe that your little friend, Harriet Smith, will soon hear something very much to her advantage.
Harriet, Mr. Knightley, what makes you say that?
Well, I can't rate her beauty as highly as you do, I'm afraid, Emma. But she's a pretty enough little thing, and in good hands she should turn out an admirable young woman.
Well, I am glad you think so, and those hands will not be wanting, I am quite sure.
Well, I must admit that you have improved her, Emma. You've cured her schoolgirl's giggle already. Does you credit.
Mr. Knightley, I am overwhelmed. But let me hear this news. It will be so greatly to her advantage.
I have reason to believe that she will very soon receive an offer of marriage.
Oh?
Robert Martin is the man. A visit to the farm this summer the cause. He's very much in love, means to marry her. There, is that not a splendid thing?
He is very obliging, but is he so sure that Harriet means to marry him?
Well, let us say he intends to make her an offer then. He came to see me 2 evenings ago to ask me what I thought of the notion. I told him I thought her an admirable young woman within her own limitations and advised him to press the match, which I have every reason to expect he will do.
And how do you know he has not already done so?
What?
I will tell you something, Mr. Knightley, in return for what you have so very kindly told me. Mr. Robert Martin did speak yesterday. That is to say, he wrote and was refused.
Refused? I can't believe it.
And nevertheless, it's quite true, I'm afraid.
The girl must be a greater simpleton than I thought her. What is a stupid girl about?
Oh, of course, I realize it is always impossible for a man to believe that a woman could refuse an offer of marriage from whatever quarter it comes.
No, nonsense. A man believes no such thing.
Oh, yes, Mr. Knightley.
Harriet Smith refused Robert Martin, but why? I can't believe it. You're mistaken, you must be.
Nevertheless, I have seen the letter.
You mean you saw her answer, did you?
I did.
And wrote it too, I'll be bound.
No. Well, not all of it.
Emma, this is all you're doing.
And what if it is? Mr. Robert Martin may be a very excellent young man in many ways, but he is not Harriet's equal.
No, he's not indeed. He's as much her superior in sense as he is in station. I really, Emma, you've allowed your ridiculous infatuation for this girl to blind you.
That is your opinion, Mr. Knightley. It is not mine.
What is Harriet Smith? Merely a parlour boarder at a girls' school. She has no family, no connection.
That is not her fault. It is her misfortune.
Please let me continue. She's pretty, I grant you, and she has an amiable nature, but she's not a sensible girl, and she has little or no information. And when Robert Martin came to tell me of his intention, I thought to myself, well, even Emma, with all her partiality for Harriet, must see that this is a good match.
Really, Mr. Knightley, I cannot help wondering at your still knowing so little of me as to say such a thing.
If Elton is the man that you have in mind for her, I very much fear that it will be a labour in vain. He's not the kind of man to make an imprudent match of this kind, in my opinion.
So you think it would be imprudent for a man of Mr. Elton's station to marry a girl in Harriet Smith's position, is that right?
I do.
Then let me say at once, Mr. Knightley, that I consider an engagement to Mr. Robert Martin would not be a match. It would be a degradation.
In that case, I will bid you good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I fear it's not as pleasant as it looks. There's an extremely harsh and treacherous wind that catches one as one crosses the terrace. I shall certainly not go again this... How very strange.
Did you never collect riddles and conundrums, Miss Woodhouse? I can scarcely believe it. Well, I did it one time, certainly, but I think I abandoned the habit when I left the school. I have over 100 now. Indeed, have you? Well, of course you will learn, Harriet, that the exchanging of riddles and verses is a very fair way for a shy young man to express his feelings without the embarrassment of an open declaration. Oh, here is one that Mrs. Goddard wrote for me, but I can never make out the meaning. Mr. Elton. Mr. Elton, what a pleasure.
Miss Woodhouse. Miss Smith, I have the honour to complete my commission on your behalf.
Harriet's portrait. Miss Woodhouse, does not the frame set it off? Oh, yes, it does indeed. Oh, thank you, Mr. Elton, we are all in your debt.
Not at all, Miss Woodhouse.
Oh, but do let me set it down somewhere so that we may all stand back and admire it.
In my opinion, it would be an adornment to any room.
Whether that is meant as a compliment to the artist or to the sitter, I think we need not inquire, Mr. Elton. But come, do join us for one moment.
Oh, I won't detain you ladies now. I'm sure you must be busy. Besides, I have some parish visits to make.
Oh, but you promised to write something in Harriet's book. You know you did.
I, Miss Woodhouse?
Oh, yes, you did, Mr. Elton. Truly, truly you did.
Oh, no, Miss Smith. I said that I was no maker of elegant verses.
Oh, Harriet, I took Mr. Elton to be a man of his word, did not you? But he is, Miss Woodhouse. I'm quite sure he is really. It is just that he has forgot his promise.
No, I did not forget. As a matter of fact, I have here a little verse, written by a friend, that might amuse you.
A friend of yours, Mr. Elton?
Yes.
Oh, may I see?
Yes, of course. It is not mine to offer to Miss Smith's collection, but I thought it might just entertain you for a moment. Please take it if you wish. Good afternoon to you, ladies.
Thank you, Mr. Elton.
Not at all.
Miss Woodhouse, I cannot make it out. You take it. No, it is yours. Oh, please, Miss Woodhouse, you must help me. Oh, very well, then. A charade to Miss Blank. Well, we know who that is. My first displays the wealth and pomp of kings, lords of the earth, their luxury and ease. Another view of man my second brings, behold him there, the monarch of the seas. Miss Woodhouse. There's another verse. But united what reverse we have, man's boasted power and freedom, all are flown. Lord of the earth and sea, he bends a slave, and woman, lovely woman, reigns alone. What does it mean, Miss Woodhouse? That is not the end, Harriet. Oh, please tell me, what does it mean? Harriet, please. Thy ready wit the word will soon supply. May its approval beam in that soft eye. Oh, Miss Woodhouse, what is it? What is it, Miss Woodhouse? Think, Harriet. Yes, Miss Woodhouse. Thy ready wit the word will soon supply. Is it mermaid, Miss Woodhouse? No, Harriet, it is not mermaid. Oh. Then, is it shark? Oh, no, it cannot be shark. That is only one syllable. Yes, Harriet. Woman. Is it woman, do you think? Oh, Miss Woodhouse, is it good? Is it well wrote? Written, Harriet. Mr. Elton's friend must be a very clever man, must he not, Miss Woodhouse? Yes, very clever. Now, my first displays the wealth and pomp of kings, lords of the earth, their luxury and ease. Well, that should be court, I would imagine. Oh, yes, of course, that must be it, court. Go on, Miss Woodhouse. Another view of man my second brings, behold him there, the monarch of the seas. Well, that ship, plain as plain. Ship, Miss Woodhouse? Oh, yes, I see, that's right, ship. So you see the word now, Harriet, do you not? Oh, let me think. Come, Harriet. Court and ship. Courtship. Courtship. Is that the word? Yes, Harriet, that is the word. Courtship. Oh, Miss Woodhouse. Oh, goodness. Oh, may its approval beam in that soft eye. Harriet, this is so particular and pointed a compliment that nobody could be in the slightest doubt as to its meaning. Oh, Harriet, you are a very, very fortunate girl. But he said it was written by his friend, did he not, Miss Woodhouse? Harriet, that was just a polite deception which even you cannot take seriously. Oh, goodness me. Harriet, this is an attachment that will give you everything. Consideration, independence, and a proper home. And above all, it will confirm our friendship, yours and mine forever, will it not? Oh, yes, Miss Woodhouse. And that would bring me as much happiness as anything truly it would. Yes, sweet Harriet. Oh, fancy that Mr. Elton should be in love with me of all people. who did not even know him to speak to at Michaelmas.
You see how your fortunes have changed, Harriet.
I well remember the very first time I saw him. The Miss Martins and I ran into the front room and peeped through the blind when we heard he was going by. Mrs. Goddard came in and scolded us, and then stayed to look herself. Oh, how beautiful he looked, I remember. Arm in arm with Mr. Cole from the livery stable.
Yes, he is quite a handsome man, certainly. There is no question of it.
Oh, I must copy it in at once, and then I shall never let my riddle book out of my hands again. Never, never.
Really, Harriet, you must not put too much significance upon a mere charade.
But, Miss Woodhouse, you just said yourself.
Yes, I know, and in my opinion it can have only one meaning. But you must not betray your feelings quite so openly.
Must I not, Miss Woodhouse?
But come, let us go poor visiting. I think we would do well to get a little fresh air.
But suppose he should come back, Mr. Elton, for his charade.
Then he will find we have gone out, will he not?
Oh, yes, I suppose so.
And if he is the man that I suspect him to be, he will come in search of us, which should not present him with too much difficulty, because Williams knows that this is my day for visiting old Mrs. Penny.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Are you tired, Harriet?
Oh, no, Miss Woodhouse, not in the least bit, thank you.
Then shall we go the long way round, past the church and up Vicarage Lane?
May we, Miss Woodhouse?
Of course. One day, Harriet, Vicarage Lane will be the most familiar place in the world to you, you and your riddle book.
Miss Woodhouse, I do so wonder that you have not married yourself, so charming as you are.
Well, thank you, Harriet. My being charming, as you're kind enough to call me, has really nothing to do with it. I must find other people charming. One other, at least. No, I'm afraid I have very little intention of marrying.
Goodness, it is strange to hear a woman talk so, Miss Woodhouse.
Well, I suppose I have none of the usual inducements to marry. I do not lack fortune or consequence or employment. But most important of all, I have never been in love.
Miss Woodhouse.
I believe few married women are as much mistresses of their husbands' houses as I am of my father's. And if I cannot make a change for the better, I certainly have no intention of doing so for the worse.
To become an old maid, like Miss Bates.
Oh, that is a truly formidable argument, Harriet, I do admit. Poor Miss Bates, boring us all with the virtues of her nephews and nieces. I believe if her precious Jane Fairfax sends her the pattern for a stomacher or knits herself a pair of garters, we must all hear about it for months to come. No, a single woman with a very narrow income must always appear somewhat ridiculous.
Miss Woodhouse.
For a narrow income contracts the mind and sours the
Miss
temper.
Woodhouse.
But a single woman of good fortune is always respectable
Miss
and may be
Woodhouse.
considered as sensible and pleasant as anybody else.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, please.
It may
Miss
not be
Woodhouse.
justice, but it is the truth, I fear.
Woodhouse, he's there behind us. Mr. Elton.
Then let us walk on as before, Harriet. Not too quickly.
Miss Woodhouse.
Mr. Elton.
Miss Woodhouse. Miss Smith. Forgive me following you like this.
Of course, Mr. Elton.
I quite forgot to pay my respects to your father when I called, and I would happily call this evening.
Oh, we should be delighted to see you at any time, Mr. Elton. You know that.
Only I had engaged myself to Mr. Cole for tonight.
Oh, what a pity.
It could be broken, of course.
Oh, no. Please don't do that another time. But you'll be wanting back your charade. Your friend's charade. Harriet?
Oh, yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Oh, well, at any time that's convenient.
Well, we both think it excellent. Quite excellent. In fact, Harriet would like to transcribe it into her book, would you not, Harriet?
Oh, yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Thank you. My friend will be honoured, I'm sure.
Your friend must be a man of some wit, Mr. Elton. Will you walk with us?
Of course.
Oh, bother it.
Miss Woodhouse, what is the matter?
Merely that I have broken my bookcase.
Oh dear.
I felt it go just now.
Then, can I? May I be of some assistance?
Thank you, Mr. Elton, but I hardly think that is an office a gentleman can very well perform.
I beg your pardon.
Not at all. But if you will be so very good as to stroll on with Miss Smith, I shall join you as soon as I have overcome my little difficulty.
Of course.
Oh, Williams, there you are. Is everything prepared for their arrival?
Yes, Mr. Woodhouse, long ago.
Good fires in the bedrooms?
Yes, sir.
And some warm soup the moment they come. I fear they'll have had a dreadful journey, poor things.
Oh, but why, Papa? It is only a very short distance and the weather is most kind.
Well, it looks as though it may turn to rain, and then the poor horses are bound to slip.
Please do not distress yourself so, Papa.
Oh, those poor children. They'll be exhausted, my dear. And it's Isabella I'm worried about. She's like your poor dear mother used to be. She suffers dreadfully on a long carriage journey, poor
Nonsense,
soul.
Papa. Now you sit there warm by the fire, and I will be there when they arrive.
They're here. They have come. Williams! Williams! Oh, what a mercy, they're safe.
Emma, how delightful it is to be back.
Isabella?
Yes, it seems strange somehow without dear Miss Taylor to greet us.
Mrs. Weston, my love. Hello, Emma.
What did you say, John?
Hello, Mr. John.
Come here and say good afternoon to your...
Oh, never mind. They want to stretch their legs a little. Williams, take Mary up to the nursery, will you?
Very good, Miss Woodhouse.
Hello, Bella.
John, dear, speak to
Take it! Go on. Go up to your rooms at once. Take off your coats and wash your hands. When you have brushed your hair properly, you may come down again. And no horseplay in the passages, mind.
No, Papa.
My child, my poor child. What a terrible journey you must have had. And the baby. What has happened to the baby?
It is all right, Papa. Mary has taken her upstairs.
Oh, John, my dear fellow, how are you? How are you?
Tolerably well, thank you, Mr. Woodhouse, considering I've just been shut up for a couple of hours with those two young hooligans of
And the
mine.
boys? Where are the boys? Poor little fellows. They must have been exhausted after their journey, I'm sure. Come in.
So exhausted we could scarcely hear ourselves speaking, Brother John.
Get yourselves warm.
Father, it's so good to be back. Yet, as I was saying to Emma, Hartfield hardly seems the same somehow without dear Miss Taylor.
And Mrs. Weston.
Ah, poor Miss Taylor. Yes, that was a grievous business indeed. Most grievous.
Would you see her often still, I hope?
No, hardly ever. It is most sad.
Oh, Papa, she has been here every day but once since they came home.
Oh, has she? Well, if you say so, I suppose. But she's always obliged to go away again.
Never mind. You will all be meeting very shortly because Mr. and Mrs. Weston and Mr. Knightley are dining with us this evening.
Thank you, Williams. In the drawing room, are they?
Yes, sir, excepting Miss Woodhouse.
Oh, and where is Miss Emma?
Upstairs, sir, in the nursery with the baby.
Is she? Thank you, Williams.
Just one moment, please. You may come in now, Mr. Knightley.
I was told that you were up here. May I see her?
There. Is she not a pretty girl? Is she not a beauty? Say good evening to your Uncle Knightley, miss. Say good evening.
Good evening, little Emma. She is one thing that we have in common, you and I.
What a comfort it is we think alike about our nephews and nieces, Mr. Knightley. As to our opinions of men and women, they do not always quite coincide. But on the subject of children, that is never the case.
If your judgment of men and women were as sound as it is where children are concerned, then we should never disagree.
So our disagreements must always arise from my being in the wrong, I see, Mr. Knightley. Is that so?
Yes, it would appear so.
Indeed.
But the reason is not far to seek. I was 16 years old when you were born.
Oh, I've no doubt as to your being very much my superior in judgment then, Mr. Knightley, I grant you. But that was 21 years ago, remember. Circumstances have altered a little since those days.
Yes, but I still have the advantage of 16 years' experience, don't forget. And by not being a pretty, overindulged young woman. Oh, come, my dear Emma. Let us be friends again. Little Emma, you tell your aunt that she ought to be setting you a better example than by renewing old grievances, and that if she weren't wrong before, then she is now, eh?
That is true. Very true. There, little Emma. you grow up a better woman than your aunt. Be much cleverer and not half so conceited.
You look a little pale, my love. I'm sure the air of London doesn't suit you. Why don't you let Perry give you a thorough examination while you are here? Yes, now do.
Papa, I'm already in the hands of Mr. Wingfield in London, and I assure you he understands my constitution perfectly.
But was it not he who prescribed sea bathing last year?
He did, and it was most beneficial to the whole family.
Perry has no faith in sea bathing. In fact, in his opinion, with some constitutions, it may be extremely harmful.
But I assure you it did the children a great deal of good.
And moreover, if you must go to the sea, it had much better not have been Southend.
Oh? Why not, pray?
Perry was most surprised to hear that you had gone there. He considers it an unhealthy place.
Southend, unhealthy? Then where does Mr. Perry recommend?
My dear, you should have gone to Cromer, if you had gone anywhere.
Cromer?
Of all the seas and bathing places, Perry considers it's quite the best. A fine open sea, Perry says, and very pure air.
Oh, and there were some new timbers needed for the roof at the mill farm. That's about all, I think.
New roof timbers, I must say, George, you are an indulgent landlord.
Well, young Martin's a very good tenant. He farms the land well. I think he deserves it.
Yes, Emma dear. We are really hopeful that Frank will be with us by Christmas Eve at the latest. Is that not good news?
Well, indeed it is. Most excellent news.
So we hope you will to see you all at Randall's to greet him.
To stay in London and to travel 40 miles to get into worse air.
But, Father...
That is what Perry said, my dear. It seemed to him a very ill-judged measure.
Then Mr. Perry would do well to keep his opinion until it is asked for. Why does he make it any business of his to wonder at what I do? I want his opinion no more than his drugs.
Papa, Mr. and Mrs. Weston have asked that we should dine at Randall's on Christmas Eve. Is that not kind of them?
Dine at Randall's on Christmas Eve. Oh, dear.
If Mr. Perry can tell me how to convey a wife and 3 children, not to mention a nursemaid, a distance of 130 miles, at no greater expense or inconvenience than 40, well, then I should be extremely obliged to him.
John, dear, please.
By then he hopes his son Frank will really be with us at last. Is that not so, Mr. Weston?
Oh, I think Miss Emma betrays an interest, eh? Well, I must admit, my dear, though I do say it myself, he's a mighty handsome young lad these days.
Well, I'm quite sure he is, Mr. Weston. Why should he not be?
Oh, dear, that, my love. Thank you, my dear, thank you.
And Miss Bates has her niece coming, so I hear. So we shall have plenty of young people to liven us up.
Ah, sweet Jane Fairfax. How is she? I've heard no mention of her in your letters, Emma. Is she still with those friends of hers at Weymouth?
You will not hear much of Jane Fairfax from Emma, I'm afraid. Indeed, you should know that, my love.
So that's the way it is, eh, my dear? You don't care for competition where the young gentlemen are concerned. Is that it?
Well, I am quite sure I do not know why Mr. John should give the impression that I do not care for Miss Fairfax. I have always maintained that she has great beauty.
But a cold and haughty manner, is that not right?
She is reserved, certainly. Yes, I think perhaps I do prefer a more open nature. Yes, I think that is quite true.
And Miss Bates? How is poor, dear, good-hearted Miss Bates these days?
Dear Miss Bates is much as usual. And I think we all of us know what that means, do we
Yes,
not?
Jane Fairfax is certainly a comely, handsome girl. But Emma's new friend, Harriet Smith, is just such another pretty young person, in my opinion.
Who, for goodness sake, is Harriet Smith?
Poor Harriet. But let it be some comfort to you that Mr. and Mrs. Weston extended their most cordial welcome.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, I'm so disappointed. I could weep.
Oh, never mind. Another time will come.
Oh, but it won't. I know it won't.
Do not be so foolish. Of course it will. And you are in no condition to go anywhere at the moment. You have a fever, and I think Perry should see you.
Miss Woodhouse, I'm sorry to be so tiresome when you've been so kind, but I really am so dreadfully disappointed.
Poor Harriet. But I have a fancy that you are not going to be the only one to be disappointed, Harriet.
What do you mean, Miss Woodhouse?
Well, that you will not be one of the party this evening.
No, Miss Woodhouse.
I have a feeling that someone, I will not say who, is going to be very much out of countenance when he sees your empty place at the table tonight. Mr. Elton,
Miss Woodhouse.
were you going to inquire after Harriet?
Yes, I'd heard you taking cold.
Oh, that is very kind. Poor Harriet. I'm afraid there is no possibility of her going to Randall's this evening.
Oh, dear. I'm extremely sorry to hear that.
Her cold is feverish and her throat much inflamed.
A sore throat. Not infectious, I hope. Not of the putrid kind. Has Perry seen her?
I believe Mrs. Goddard has sent for him. But thank you for your concern, Mr. Elton. It's most kind.
Oh, not at all.
Oh, dear. Poor Harriet. I could almost envy her being unable to go out tonight. It's turned so cold all of a sudden. If I were you, Mr. Elton, I would take this opportunity to excuse myself and stay indoors.
But Mrs. Weston will be ill.
After all, you have a very busy day tomorrow, and I'm sure Mrs. Weston would quite understand under the circumstances.
Miss Woodhouse, I can assure you nothing will prevent me from joining the party tonight.
Emma! Go back there, steady.
Mr. John!
Emma, jump in.
Oh, well, thank
Well,
you.
this is no weather to be out walking. Sorry, Elton. We meet this evening, eh? Get up, copper. Never in my life have I met a man more intent on trying to make himself agreeable where ladies are concerned.
Oh, Mr. Elton.
With men, he can be quite simple and rational, but with ladies, I confess he makes my boot itch.
His manners are not perfect, I admit, but he has a great degree of goodwill.
And towards you, certainly.
Towards me.
That's what I said.
Are you imagining me to be Mr. Elton's object?
Well, such an imagination had crossed my mind, I own.
Really? What an absurd idea.
I think not. At any rate, think about it and regulate your conduct towards him as a consequence. That's my advice.
My conduct to Mr. Elton?
I speak as a privileged friend.
Really, Mr. Knightley? I do not understand what you can possibly mean.
Oh, very well.
Thank you, my dear, thank you. That's it. Now, I'm sick. Yes. That's right. Could you... Thank you, dear.
You go on with Emma and Isabella, will you, sir? The rest of us will follow shortly in the second carriage.
Once I find myself in full agreement with the old gentleman. 4 horses and 4 servants, merely to convey 5 idle people, who would rather stay at home than go out in weather that threatens snow.
What is it?
Nothing.
Don't want the horses to get killed, I'm sure.
Oh, no, not indeed. How very like you, my dear, to think of it.
Come now, everybody. The ladies in the first carriage with Mr. Woodhouse. George and I will follow in the other and call on Miss Bates and Elton.
Come in, all of you.
Oh, this dreadful weather. I thought I saw a flake of snow just now, but the girls assured me it was not.
No, we shall not have snow, you may depend upon it. But I have a disappointment for Emma, I'm afraid.
What means to us?
My son Frank cannot be with us tonight, after all, I'm
What
afraid.
a shame. Not bad news, I hope.
Oh, no, simply that he has a great many engagements these days. But he's quite positive that he will make the journey in the new year.
Indeed, I hope so.
Yes, he's been hoping to come to us since September, has he not, my love?
Yes, my dear.
Every letter's been full of it. But to tell the truth, he cannot command his own time. He has to please those who may be pleased only by a great many sacrifices. Is that not so, my love?
I'm afraid so, my dear.
But I've no doubt of seeing him in about the second week of January.
That is his intention, certainly.
So what with Frank and your pretty little friend Miss Smith, Emma? We shall be too short, I'm afraid.
3, my love. Miss Bates's niece cannot be with us either, I'm afraid.
To be sure, I'd forgot. Miss Fairfax. Oh, well, we must make what cheer we can without them, eh, Emma? You and I will not sit by with long faces, eh?
No, indeed, we shall not, Mr. Weston.
No, I will retain my muffler for a while if nobody objects. An old man's privilege, you know.
She does write such a beautiful hand. A fine, clear, bold hand, I would call it. I say, does she not write a very fine hand, my niece Jane? You have remarked upon it yourself, did you not, Emma?
I do not recall having done so, Miss
Now,
Bates.
where did I put that letter? I read it again to Mother just now. Ah, here it is. Oh, no, it was not so long. It was quite short, in fact. As a rule, she does not write a short letter. In general, she covers the whole page and then crosses it. My mother often wonders that I can read it. Hetty, she says, I don't know how you can make out such checker work. Ah, here it is. I knew I had it with me. Father! Oh,
The others are busy with their port wine, so I thought I would come up and join the ladies.
May he, Mrs. Weston? Of course he may. Take the chair opposite the fire, Mr. Woodhouse.
Thank you, my dear. I must confess that I find the company of ladies infinitely more to my liking. Thank you.
I was just telling Emma I received a letter this afternoon from my niece Jane Fairfax. Such a delightful letter. I do not know anyone to equal Jane as a correspondent.
Ah,
Oh,
good. I see that I'm not the first. May I come and join you, Miss Woodhouse, Mrs. Weston? Thank you, ladies. I suppose you've had no further news of Miss Smith. I found in the end I had no time to call in there. I wish you might persuade Miss Woodhouse not to venture into the sick room, Mrs. Weston. Always so concerned for others, yet so careless of her own safety. Please do give me your support in forbidding her to do so.
I'm afraid I have no influence at all upon her these days, Mr. Elton.
I should think not indeed.
Then I shall have to issue the prohibition myself. Miss Woodhouse, I cannot allow you to run the risk of a putrid infection that might have serious consequences upon your health. I cannot.
Really, Mr. Elton, I fail to see by what right you make such a statement.
Ah, I thought you might all be interested to learn that it is snowing hard outside and the ground is already white.
Dear children, I must get home at once.
This should be something new indeed for your coachman and horses, sir. Snowstorms.
Father, really, Mrs. Weston, I'm extremely sorry. John, dear, I think you should order the carriages immediately.
Very well, my dear, if you think so.
Dear, if it has been snowing all the while we were at dinner, we should never get home.
No need for hurry. An hour's snow will hardly make the road completely impassable. Besides, if one carriage is overset, then there is always the other. That is the joy of it.
West and I have been out as far as the gate. There's very little yet, hardly enough to whiten the ground.
And easing off already. It is nothing at all, scarcely. Well, not leaving us already. It is not yet 10 o'clock.
I'm extremely sorry, Mr. Weston. Such a delightful evening. John, dear.
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Weston.
Jack, if we are going, may I fetch you your cloak, Miss Woodhouse?
No, thank you.
Allow me, please.
Thank you, Mr. Elton, but it is upstairs.
Yes, of course.
I'm afraid we shall have a very bad drive, very bad. Isabella will not like it at all. She's nervous, you know.
I really don't know what you're all in such a hurry for. If the worst comes to the worst, we've got 2 spare rooms, one for the gentlemen and one for the ladies, eh, my dear?
Father, do be quick, please.
Sir, let me take your arm.
Oh, thank you, my dear fellow. I am so afraid of slipping.
Elton, you coming with us?
No, there'll be no room for me. I'll come in the second carriage.
Take my place if you wish.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. No, I insist.
An evening. I really am so sorry after all the trouble you have taken. Really, it makes one wonder whether it is wise to venture out at all at this time of year.
Ah, there you are then, my dear. You won't have to go alone. You have an escort.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Weston. I'm sorry about this, but you know my father and Isabella. Of course, my dear. I quite understand. Thanks very much. Thank you. Goodbye. Safe journey, Mr. Elton.
Goodbye. Safe journey.
It still snows a little, I see. Really, I can scarcely imagine how he manages to find his way, poor man. It is fortunate the journey is so... Mr. Elton.
Miss Woodhouse, how can I express my passion?
Mr. Elton.
Miss Woodhouse, say that I may hope. Say that I may. If you do not, I shall die.
This, to me, sir, you forget yourself.
I do not. Indeed, I do not. Oh, Miss Woodhouse. Beautiful, adorable Miss Woodhouse. So elegant, so proud.
Control yourself,
Oh, I
Mr.
cannot,
Elton.
I cannot. Miss Woodhouse,
Mr.
forgive me.
Elton!
Irresistible, quite irresistible.
Really, sir, I must ask you to behave yourself. I quite understand that when a gentleman has had a glass or two of wine, he is not quite himself. Very well. I am not one to tell tales. If you give me your word of honour that this does not occur again, I will not breathe a word of it to Miss Smith. Is that quite understood?
Miss Smith? What in the world has she to do with it?
Sure.
Miss Smith is nothing to me, except as your friend. You know that.
Indeed, I do not.
Oh, charming Miss Woodhouse. You know quite well my feelings for you. Else why you encourage me so?
Encourage you.
Certainly.
Really, Mr. Elton, I think you must be out of your
Oh,
mind.
of course you have. Repeatedly. Think. First, the charade which you are happy enough to accept from me. Remember?
Yes.
Yes, you, madam. And the matter of the picture frame which cost me a day's journey to London, if you recall.
Picture frame.
For your exquisite drawing.
But my drawing was of Miss Smith.
But the artist was you.
Well, it has not been Miss Smith at all.
I never once thought of Miss Smith in my whole existence. If she imagined otherwise, then I'm afraid it is her own wishes that have misled her. Everything I have done and said has been for you alone, Miss Woodhouse. I'm sure you don't mistake me.
Keep away, sir.
Oh, charming Miss Woodhouse. Confess this coquettish attitude permits me to believe that you do feel something.
No, sir, it does not. It does nothing of the sort. Really, Mr. Elton, if I had thought for one moment that your pursuit of poor Miss Smith had been
My
so
pursuit
heartlessly
of Miss Smith?
Yes, Mr. Elton, pursuit.
Really, madam, I can scarcely understand you. Everyone has his own level, I suppose, but I am hardly yet at quite
Mr.
such a loss.
Elton, that is enough.
Miss Woodhouse, let me finish.
No, sir, I shall not. I see we are almost at your door. I would be very much obliged if you would allow me to continue my journey alone, please.
Very well. If you wish.
Mr. Elton, I have no thoughts of matrimony at present. Good night, sir.
Good night, madam.
What an experience. Dreadful, dreadful. Well, that is the last time I shall venture out in the evenings until the spring, that is a certainty.
hear the other carriage, Father. Johnny's in the door.
Oh, thank goodness she's safe. I didn't dare think about her in the hands of a mere hackney coachman. James is always so careful.
Excellent, excellent. We had visions of you flying into a snowdrift with Elton.
Well, now then, we'll all have a good warm bowl of gruel. What do you think about that, eh, Emma?
Not for me, thank you, Father.
Oh, my dear, it must make you sleep.
Excuse me, good night.
Oh, dear, what is the matter with everybody these days?